So, you've farmed a whole bunch of Transmog items. You've listed them on the auction house. They haven't sold. You farmed some more. You list them on the auction house again. They haven't sold. Is the Transmog market a myth? Let's explore. How are we doing there, boys and girls? Manthis here, and welcome back to another video. Now today we're going to explore this topic that's been floating around in my head for a little bit of time, and I wanted to really sort of try and break this apart and see if we can put some sort of put this theory to bed, if nothing else. Firstly though, I want to make a little bit of an announcement. I have finally got my ass into gear and created the Discord server. Many people have been on my case for a while now to put together a Discord server so everybody can dive in and share their goal making tips and that sort of stuff. So I've done it. I'm going to leave a link in the description. Top link in the description down below will be a link to the Discord server, but we can see it here. Now we're going to be careful I don't dox myself too much. You can see it here that we have just a real simple setup for the Discord server right now. I've got a whole bunch of people in here, and you boys and girls can jump into Star Schmucks, say hi, do some chatting between yourselves, and we can talk about goal making where possible. If you happen to be a member of the channel here on YouTube, if you have joined the Coffee Club, then there is a private channel for Coffee Club members only. Make sure you link your Discord with your YouTube, and it will automatically give you the role and allow you access to the Coffee Club, which is where I will usually sort of I'll throw in some upcoming video ideas, and certainly if any questions are asked, that will be my priority focus is at. But of course, come pop in, say hi. That's all I really wanted to say on the Discord side of things. But back to the main topic today. So, Transmog is one of those markets where there seems to be a huge ramp up in sort of efficiency. So when you first get going with it, it's a really slow burner. You see so frequently across the internet people saying that you need like 400, 500, 1,000, even 2,000 items listed on the auction house at any one time before you'll even start to see consistent sales. Now, that logic alone for me is what's kept me out of the Transmog market for a long time. The fact that the sheer quantity of time it would take you to either craft, because let's not forget, crafting is a big part of Transmog. Some of the crafted Transmogs are some of the best selling items. Or secondly, farming that quantity of items is just bonkers. Not to mention the amount of time that you're going to have to spend posting those on the auction house every day. Let's not forget, posting 2,000 auctions on the auction house is a good 20 minutes, half an hour's worth of work, absolutely minimum. And that's assuming that you've got everything organized in TSM groups and you're using add-ons to help smooth out the process. All of this to only have a trickle amount of sales in the first place seems very overwhelming, I think, and it gives the impression that the Transmog market is a bit of a myth, and it also gives a misrepresentation of the value of some of these items, but we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail later. But there was this Reddit post that really caught my eye about this topic, and the interesting thing is it wasn't the post itself that caught my eye, it was a comment within the post, and let me show you it. So there was a thread made on the WoW Economy subreddit a day or two ago called Transmog Sales from Streamers, and somebody was obviously less than impressed with firstly the clickbaity nature of a lot of YouTube videos, which unfortunately is just part of the game nowadays, and they were kind of both confused and frustrated about, you know, the values that people are throwing out there. 100,000 gold an hour. I've run these dungeons, I've not found X, Y, and Z. I've got these items, they've not sold. There was a bunch of frustration. But this person, now I apologise if I try and say your name, I'll probably butcher it completely, but I will leave a link in the description to this specific comment because this was absolute gold. Very rarely do you see people take the time and effort, especially on Reddit, to go into this much detail about how something should work, and it's what I really want to is can I get rid of these big old horrible adverts? Probably can't. Let's make that a bit bigger. Can you guys see that? Probably can. So, in simple terms, this person has put together a really good, solid starting guide for Transmog. And I wanted to go through this in a little bit of detail with you guys today, but try and add a few little things to it, because there's still whilst this is a very, very good setup, I feel there is a lot of room for improvement in this. And I'll dive in where I think I can add 2 cents that would be beneficial. But the simple terms, as they're saying, like I started seeing I didn't start seeing reliable and consistent sales until around 1,000 items listed on the auction house, and if they have less than 1,300 auctions on the auction house, they feel like they're falling behind. This is a huge thing for Transmog market. The fact that you could have way over 1,000 items listed before you can actually expect to sell any of them. And this worries me from a goblin's point of view, who spends a lot of time on the auction house. I do a lot of flipping, I do a lot of crafting, which in turn means that I spend a lot of time managing those auctions on the auction house. To have 1,000 items listed up on the auction house without seeing consistent sales, something's not quite right. So we can tweak that, we can tune that, we can make our listings way more effective with just a few simple little aspects. But they start talking about literally what are some of the best ways to actually go out and farming those recipes. Now, it's very interesting to me. They almost instantly say, any character that has fast flying, super recommend that you max out your vanilla through to Wrath of the Lich King crafting on each of them. They're not even talking about farming dungeons. They're not even talking about standstill, AFK, hyperspawn sort of spots and locations. They're talking about crafting. This can be one of the biggest, easiest, and probably quickest ways to dive into the Transmog market. Leveling up vanilla, leveling up Outland, leveling up Wrath of the Lich King, tailoring blacksmithing, leatherworking is pretty quick, it's pretty simple, and it's actually very cost effective nowadays. The materials you'll probably find on the auction house relatively cheap, and it was back at a time where you didn't need anywhere near as many materials in the first place. So you can actually get your professions ranked up really quickly, really easily. More importantly, you don't even need Shadowlands to be doing this technically. I get asked pretty frequently at the moment, how do I make gold without the Shadowlands expansion? This, boys and girls, this. But anyway, so after doing some initial crafting, getting your skills up, they suggest that picking up some of the recipes that are obtainable for more than just your trainer, because few people bother to go to Ungoro Crater for whatever specific recipe is sold there. And that's so true. Going and getting these putting in that extra 5% effort is where it will really start to pay off. Any man and their dog, 2021, any person and their dog can quite comfortably nowadays just level up their profession by standing at a trainer. But if you look at your unlearned list, if you look at the unlearned tab and you see, right, well actually this pattern comes from a vendor over in here, get on your flying mount, hop over there, see if that vendor is selling that item at that time. If they're not, log off, log back on again an hour later and see if they then are. That little bit of extra effort, getting those patterns that are more scarce and more rare, will instantly reduce the amount of competition you have on the crafted items themselves, and in turn hopefully mean that those items are considered rarer, which will likely have a higher price, and more on top of the fact that because they are slightly rarer, you're likely to get much better profit out of crafting and selling each one of them as well. But once you've done some crafting, the suggestion then goes on to say that the personal method for them is to just no-brain it when it comes to crafting. We'll talk about this in a minute. No-brain crafting is good to begin with, but there's so much optimization we can do with this, it's not even funny. They are making 2 of every single craft, restocking then up to those 2, and they have a simple crafting operation that they run anytime they're on their crafters. They're really using what I consider the spaghetti against the wall approach. They're picking up a whole bunch of items, they're throwing them at the auction house, and they're just seeing what sticks. I commonly call this the Walmart approach to selling, but the Walmart approach to selling is more for current content that's high volume. Transmog is a very low volume market. You really need to spend a little bit more time than a no-brain approach when it comes to crafting, but we can dive into details about exactly how to get that up and running in a little bit more. You want to be looking, they state, for very high sale rate crafts. Anything that's 0.04 is good. We can manipulate this. This is one thing that I'm really hot on at the moment. If you've got these items that are super low sale rates, we're talking 0.04, 0.03, 0.02, and worst case scenario 0.01 items, there is a lot you can do to dramatically improve the sale rate on those items, and it's really simple. Don't be so greedy with how much you list for them. And we're going to talk about undercuts, and people hate when we talk about undercuts because some people live by the rule that you should never undercut, but this is a market where actually undercutting can be very beneficial to increase your efficiency. And I went into detail pretty heavily on stream today about this. I might have to make the efficiency in the TSM side of things a video in its own, but I want to go through this post in detail first. So some items they even claim sell at a rate of 0.15 sell rate. This is going to be current content stuff, nothing old school. Make a few extra of those if you want, but in general, crafting is very low risk, cheap, and a quick way to get a lot of MOG on the auction house at once. And this is key, that because we stated that those first 400,000-500,000 items you have listed on the auction house, they're the ones that you're going to have to grind through, and it feels like it's just not working. But once you get past that point and you're listing 1,000 auctions a day, if 5 auctions a day sell, that's 5 sales. You're making profit on every 5 of those items, and your gold will start to increase. But the issue is it's a bit of a numbers game at this point in time, that you just have to get that chunk of stuff up and running to begin with. After some crafting though, you can sort of turn your focus towards dungeon farming. Again, they don't recommend this over crafting just for making gold, but it is a more fun way to do it. Some people enjoy crafting. They enjoy the art of going to the auction house, grabbing the items. They enjoy the art of putting those items together. They enjoy hunting for those rare recipes. I myself personally fall into that category. I get my dopamine kick from gold making when I sell an item on the auction house. Hence why today I am sat at the auction house, and what am I doing? I'm selling legendaries because, you know, it's patch day, they're popping off. That's when I get my dopamine kick. Some people get their dopamine kick and they get the thrill and the excitement of running through that dungeon and that really rare item dropping. Their eyes light up, they get excited, the dopamine hit goes through the roof and they enjoy it, and so they keep doing it. People are different. I personally prefer the crafting, but I understand why people enjoy the dungeon farming as well. But dungeon farming should come second, but you really need to choose your dungeons wisely, and this is a really good point that they make. And to make it worth your time in any way, you need a speed set character, preferably a druid. Now, we've talked about druids previously. Druids are, without a shadow of a doubt, the best in slot farming class. There's no argument about that, unfortunately. In today's, the way that the classes are set up now, druids are super speedy naturally, not to mention you can get a speed set on them relatively easily. This fella seems to state that they've got their druid to passively run at 200% speed. That's before you throw on buffs and movement speeds and any other bonuses. And then they have the dream walk effect. This is super powerful. I only found out about this the other day. The dream walk ability for druids means that you can run all the way to the end of a dungeon. You can pop your dream walk. It will teleport you out of the dungeon. It teleports you to a location where you can hop on a mount that has a vendor, you know, sell any trash that you need to sell, repair if you need to sell. And then when you dream walk again, and this is the cool thing, when you press dream walk again, it tries to take you back to where you came from. But of course, it can't take you back to the exact point in the dungeon. So what does it do? It drops you conveniently outside the entrance. Wow. For getting your 10 runs an hour on those longer dungeons, this is crucial, and it's super OP, and there's not many other classes in the game that can have this kind of flexibility. So yeah, TLDR, druids are super good for dungeon farming. When you've got your druid that can run instances fast enough to hit the lockout, then just go ham on farming dungeons. And this is a really cool part. They actually go into detail about some of the dungeons that should be focused on. Black Fathom Deeps, Blackrock Depths, Zul'Farrak, Wailing Caverns, Razorfang Kraul, Razorfang Downs. You'll notice all of these are vanilla. Almost every single dungeon you want to focus on is vanilla. This is simply because vanilla items are relatively unique in their appearance. There's lots of rare ones, there's lots of highly in-demand ones, and more importantly, from a transmog point of view, they're super cheap to post on the auction house. When you start gathering items from some of the newer expansions, Warlords of Draenor, Legion, BFA, that sort of thing, items that you get from that region in time are so expensive to list on the auction house that if you don't micromanage the sales of them, you're going to end up just burning through gold, just listing them on the auction house, which is the exact opposite of what we're trying to achieve. They seem to say that you can get to about the 750 unique auctions point by just running these few dungeons and doing a bit of crafting, which sounds about right to me. But then when you want to really push it further afield, you can do Scarlet Monastery, Maradon, Dire Maul, Stratholme or Alderman. These dungeons tend to give less actual value per run. We'll talk about value in a bit. Less value per run, but there's the chance of some really, really rare items that have a stupidly high market value to them. So this is like picking up that lottery scratch card kind of thing. You know it's kind of pointless. Spending that $1 on that scratch card is kind of pointless, but when it pays off big, which is really cool, and that's why you're there. But you only want to be doing these dungeons as and when you've already built your core inventory of items. It makes a suggestion that I have to back up as well. It says that checking out some of Student Albatross's videos, especially his 100 run series, where he runs a dungeon 100 times and takes note of the loot. Now, taking note of the loot is what you should be doing. Please, for the love of everything that is holy, ignore anything that he says about pricing of the items, because all of that is subject to you actually selling it. You don't get that gold until you sell it. But knowing where you get these rare items from and the fact that they are the rare items that you're hunting for is the value in those videos for sure. So once we've done all of that, this is where it starts getting into detail about how you sell these items. And this is where I think I've got a little bit of added advice that I can throw into this. The fact that minimum market value to keep items, if it's a sale rate of 0.01, it's got to be a minimum market value of at least 2,000 gold. These are quite sensible, but with some simple management and correct setup of your operations with TSM, you can chip away at that market value slowly, but over time you can chip away that market value, and you'll get to a point where the price of the item is advantageous not just to transmog farmers, but you'll start pricing your items to the point where people leveling their characters might also buy them, you know, for the actual intended purpose of these items in the first place. Their stat sticks to make you level faster in that level bracket, but you might also start pushing the items into a price bracket where other gold makers and transmog farmers may see the price of your item as valuable enough to buy it, to try and flip it. And you want to, the reason why I say you want to micromanage your markets and your listings a little bit is so that you can cover all those three categories of people that might buy your item. If you just post your auctions undercutting by 0 copper, doing a 0 undercut on any of the items you post, you only post at like 110% of market value or something. Over time, what's happened with add-ons like Trade Skill Master is it's massively inflated the actual value of a lot of these transmog items to the point where they're so overpriced that they never sell. And when they never sell, quite naturally, the sale rate decreases. And the more the sale rate decreases, the harder it appears to sell these items. But this is why my approach to Transmog is that you want to set it up so that over time, just like a real shop would do, if a real shop buys an item, it needs to sell that item. And so if it hasn't sold that item in a week, it might drop its price a little bit. If it hasn't sold that item after another week, it might drop its price a little bit further. And hey, by the end of the year, if they still got this stock lying about, they might have a sale. And so you can see this is not a new concept. This is something that the business world has been doing forever. That when you have your recommended retail price on an item, or let's call it the DB market price, if you only list at that price, the likelihood you're going to sell that item is super slim. But the more competitive on price you can be, the greater the chance that somebody will come in and buy that item. And that in turn is going to help massively increase your personal sale rate on these items. Not to mention, it'll weed out all the trash for you. Once an item gets to a point where it's so cheap and yet still nobody's buying it, that should be a massive learning lesson for you to say that this item is actually trash. Now it's time to vendor it. If we ever get it again, nobody wants it for leveling. Nobody is willing to buy it to flip it. Nobody wants it for its appearance. It's trash. Have a TSM group for trash items. Anything that's in that group, you're not going to put on the auction house because it's not worth you wasting your time. So now I went off on a small tangent. Let's continue with the post. As you get a bigger supply on the auction house, you may make this even more restrictive in time. They do start to talk about, managing your inventory a bit, but they only touch on it. I list almost every profession recipe that I get because people tend to buy 40 different recipes all at once. This is not necessarily Transmog related directly, but it is a cool little market to be in. Past expansion, world drop, or even vendor drop recipes can sell for a considerable amount of gold. And like they say, people tend to buy 40, 50, however many they can within a price range. Somebody will go to the auction house, they'll go to recipes, and they can change it to usable only and click search, and it will only show them the recipes that are relevant to their profession and that they can learn. People tend to do, I don't have any professions on this character, so ignore the stupidly small list. But people will tend to do this, and then they'll just buy up until a price point that they're comfortable with. They'll buy all of the recipes that they need, and this is where this person is coming from. That somebody will likely buy like 40 recipes in one go, if they're available and if they do so. If you don't list them on the auction house, you won't sell them. Quite simple. And then they talk about cancel scanning. Cancel scanning is the absolute cancer of the transmog market. If you start trying to cancel scan, you will just give up with selling transmog almost instantly. My advice to anybody when it comes to transmog or trying to list transmog on the auction house is 12-hour listings. No cancel scans. If you physically cannot log on to list your auctions twice a day, then maybe 24-hour listings. But there is absolutely no point doing 48-hour listings and trying to do cancel scans. You're bonkers if you even attempt to. Simply because a 48-hour listing is way more expensive to list than either a 12 or a 24-hour listing. Secondly, the cancel scan throttle kicks in after like 60 auctions. If you've got 1,000 auctions on the auction house, it's going to take you longer to run a single cancel scan than it probably took you to post all of those 1,000 auctions on there in the first place. It's really not worth doing. 12-hour listings. Trust me, you'll thank me later. They do throw in a couple of extra cool little tips here. When you get these super rare items, if you've got your inventory and you're starting to do some of the rarer or the dungeons which are a little bit more, a little bit more RNG, a little bit more of a gamble, then those super rare items that you get, holler about them in chat, throw them up in trade chat and tell people that you're selling these rare items. They claim to have had some massive sales from posting in chat. Massive sales just from posting in chat that they're selling expensive items. Any sale's a good sale, and if you're sat at the auction house anyway, you can have a macro on your toolbar. Just press the macro every minute or two. There's even add-ons that do this for you, but they get really spammy, and be careful using those. You want to keep it a little bit more personal. But just, you know, shouting about in trade that you've got some super rare items listed, if it attracts somebody's attention, hey presto, you may make a sale. Parting note then, don't get discouraged if your sales are non-existent at first. While you build your auction house, you may end up losing money due to listing fees, hence why keeping it within the earlier expansions of the game is really sensible. The constant flow of money comes in from a big variety, so don't worry too much. And then they go into showing their dashboard of gold on a couple of characters and whatever. This was a super helpful, oddly enough, a comment that will get completely buried, but this was good enough to have been its own post and would have had updates to the moon and back if this person chooses to put this as an actual post themselves. But yeah, so there we go, boys and girls. I wanted to sort of try and demystify this sort of theory that the transmog industry is a myth. One thing my parting notes on this would be that you really want to I would personally spend as much time managing the auctions that you are posting as you do farming them in the first place. If you spend an hour or two a day farming transmog, running dungeons, you want to make sure that you're also spending an hour or two a day micromanaging some of the probably the higher value items, I would guess. Maybe putting some of the really high, I'm talking like the 50k plus valued items in their own separate group, just so it's then easier to say, right, do a cancel scan on these items and these items only, if you really do insist on doing cancel scans. And in some cases, if you are slowly but surely whittling away the market value of those items to try and bring the price to a point that is valuable for multiple different uses, then you also run into the opportunity of, like, if there's say 4 of an item being listed on the auction house and the same 4 keeps undercutting you day by day, you do have the option of just buying out the other 3. This is the nature of transmog that a lot of people don't understand, that instead of like smashing your face on the keyboard going out trying to farm these items, sometimes you could just, you know, buy 2 or 3 of them out, leaving you to be the only one with that item, and then you can price it exactly how you want and you have no issues with undercuts. Somebody cannot go out and apart from crafted gear, for the love of God, don't do this with crafted gear. But for any world drop based gear, nobody can actually go out and specifically focus on just one item if you buy out theirs at a reasonable price. So there's lots of things you can do. This is the core concept of gold making. It's the more effort you put in, the more gold you'll get out with most things in this game. But there we go, boys and girls. I'll leave it there. Just to wrap up ever so quickly, the Discord. First link in the description will be the Coffee Club Discord. Jump in there if you happen to be a member. Say hi in the Coffee Club. It's the private channel for Coffee Club members. I'll make sure I say hi to each and every one of you personally. Secondly, I'll leave a link to this comment and this thread on Reddit. It was really interesting for me to read through, and I would imagine that it would be useful to some of you guys as well. But there we go, boys and girls. A slightly longer one than normal. I apologise for the length of this one, but I hope this was packed with some information that might help you sell some transmog going forward. But I've been Manthis, boys and girls. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.